Hi everybody, I'm going to read you a chapter out of this. Wait, give me a minute. Okay. Hopefully I won't get censored because of that. Okay. The Night Room, Chapter 2. Are you comfortable? Karen asked as the lights began to dim inside the night room. I'm okay, Joy barely whispered the words. The chair was fine once she got used to the idea of the restraining straps. At least they weren't really tight. Karen had already told her that she could lean forward if she ever wanted to. Now concentrate on the tiny lights that are coming on. They're very pretty, aren't they? Mm-hmm. She moved her toes just to be sure that she still could. She had been instructed to leave her shoes in the hallway, and that hadn't been mentioned beforehand. Karen had given her cloth booties to keep her feet warm. She wished she hadn't worn her mother's sweatsuit. She must look like a bleached orange whale. The assistant went behind the chair where she could no longer be seen. Joy tried to turn so she could watch her. Stay still, please. A drawer slid open, then closed. I'm bringing out Argus now, Karen said in a hushed voice. She came out with something held carefully in her two hands, as though it were made of delicate crystal. That's it? Joy felt strangely disappointed. Karen smiled. It looks something like a bicycle helmet, doesn't it? It looked a whole lot like a blue bicycle helmet except for the wire extending from the top, plus some kind of black knob. Of course, a real bicycle helmet would also cover the back of your skull. What about my hair? She could feel her pulse hammering in her throat as Karen slipped the unit over her head and began to fasten the strap under her chin. You'll probably want to comb it afterward. What Joy meant to ask was whether her hair would get in the way with the connection Argus made with her brain. She didn't want to ask for fear of seeming stupid, but she had thought that they want to shave parts of her scalp. You can sit back now, good. I'm going to make the chair tilt backward. Most people tense up when I ask them to relax, so I won't. Joy closed her eyes tight, then opened them again when the movement stopped. Karen adjusted a strap under her chin, rechecked her wrist coverings. She sat on the stool and picked up a clipboard. Try not to nod off. You'd be surprised how many people do. Nod off. It was all Joy could do to release her death grip on the armrest. In drama, the teacher had taught them some simple relaxation techniques. As the room reached the level of dusk, Joy's breathing became steady and even. She yawned. Getting sleepy? You're probably, you're probably going to be a really good subject. Have you done it? Joy asked. Gone through Argus? No, why not? I don't want to. The answer seemed brusque, and Joy wondered if she had said something to annoy the assistant. Karen's friendly tone returned. I'm going out now, so my presence won't disturb you, okay? Huh? The chair was really very comfortable. The sky, no. The room had turned into inky blue. Overhead, the fireflies darted and danced. Karen? What? The assistant stood near the door. Karen, what? She wanted to ask. Oh, yes. How will Argus know when I'm ready? The answer seemed to come from a long way off. Argus will know. The door clicked shut, and then the room was still. She watched the lights. As she lay there, Joy began to hear a faint humming, like bees taking nectar from her mother's prize roses. The sound faded into the buzz of conversations. At first far away, then more distinct. What food looks that food looks almost good enough to eat, a man's voice said. Joy had to blink in the unnatural brightness of the hotel ballroom. She was standing near a buffet table. Next to her, a gray-haired man in a suit was reaching toward a serving dish. He looked like a Banting science teacher, but older. Unsure of what to do, Joy smiled nervously. He smiled back. It's nice to see so many of my former students again. You too. As he moved away, Joy looked around. She was actually at a party in a hotel ballroom. Not actually. but it looked real. Chandeliers twinkled overhead. She heard music coming from somewhere, then realized that live musicians were playing a piano and string bass in one corner. A few people seemed to be looking at her. Confused, she gazed down again at the long buffet table. It was filled with plates of scrumptious-looking food. Maybe she should eat something. She was positive that Karen must have heard her stomach screaming its demands. Joy picked up an empty plate, then moistened her lips with her tongue. Her lips felt greasy, as though she'd been piling on chapstick. A woman moved to her left. "Oh, can I have your autograph?" she asked. "It would mean so much to my daughter." Curious, Joy looked up. Directly opposite her stood a blonde beauty queen type, with hair piled high. She wore an electric blue dress, slit way down in front. Her chest was huge. Obviously, a classmate had become famous. It wasn't polite to stare, so she ignored the beauty queen and moved down to a stainless steel server holding chicken wings. She was reaching for her tongs when the same woman touched her arm. Joy started. "I was positive that you hadn't heard me." The woman held out an autograph book. "If you could just sign here, Joy." Across the table, the same woman was holding out a book to the blonde. Joy looked directly down into her own cleavage, barely covered by tight-fitting blue fabric. Oh my gosh. She was as big as an aircraft carrier. She thought she recognized a mole at the top of her left breast, but nothing else looked familiar. She looked up again. The wall was mirrored. She was the beauty queen. This was what Argus saw for her. She almost giggled. "What do you want me to write?" "To Helen. That's my little girl." "Uh-huh." Joy wasn't sure what she scrawled, but the woman seemed satisfied. As soon as she left, Joy stood sideways before the mirrored wall. It wasn't her chest, her face. Suddenly, she couldn't recall what her own nose looked like. Everything was new and improved. Some areas ballooned out, others were scrunched in so far that she could barely breathe. Joy, a young woman, appeared at her side. "I was in your English class. That is, I was in your English class after yours for a while, but I sat in your desk. I saw your last two films. In fact, I saw Vegetable Soup 5 times." She thrust a reunion photograph toward her. "Could you give me your autograph?" She had made it. She was an actress. "Maybe you could write to Hillary, my former classmate." The only Hillary she knew was a girl who scowled at her if she tried to stay at her desk to write down the next day's assignment. Joy took the book. She looked for a surface on which to write, then bent over the table. The tight dress slipped down even further. Around the room, men were gaping at her. Grown men. Some of them stood next to women who looked annoyed. She wrote her name, then handed back the book with a smile. "Will you bring out another exercise tape soon?" the woman asked. Yes, she hoped it hadn't sounded like a question. "Is it true what the tabloids say?" "Which tabloids?" Joy sucked in her breath in ecstasy. Articles about her had been written for the supermarket tabloids. "What do they say?" "About your diets." "Oh, tabloids exaggerate," Joy said. That seemed safe. "Do they say anything about romance?" "Well, I don't actually buy." Hillary stopped. "All right." There was a copy of the Enquirer where I had my hair done. In fact, I tore out the article. She reached into her purse and began to read. Despite her knock-'em-dead good looks, Joy considers herself a home type. She says she's shy. A man was gesturing at Hillary to come join the group of people he was standing with. "That's my husband. Thank you again." Joy stood there. Surely she couldn't still be shy. She was perfect. Talented. She had always assumed that once she took off weight, once people began recognizing her talent, everything would fall into place. She looked around in a daze, wondering who she could talk to about what was happening. In a way, she had felt relieved that she would be the one to go through Argus first. That way she wouldn't have to make a conversation with the others in the waiting area. Now she wanted to talk to the members of her class. The first one she spotted was Graham, or a grown-up version of Graham. He stood near the bar talking to a thin woman who was probably their age, although she looked older. He wore a sports jacket that seemed ill-fitting and not entirely up to date. Like many of the others, he glanced in her direction and then looked away. Maybe he didn't recognize her. Of course he didn't recognize her, she scolded herself. How could he when she hadn't recognized herself? She thought she saw Tess's red hair. She was just moving in that direction when a man stopped next to her. Hey, Joy, Mac's voice boomed. I bet you don't remember my name. Mac, she said. You're Mac. You remember. His face lit up. How about that? She didn't want to see Mac. She hated having to be a good sport while he made coarse jokes, but he wasn't making crude jokes now. He wasn't moving away either. So, Mac, she said, how have you been? Can't complain. I see your name around often enough, he winked, and your picture. She wanted to be a serious actress. Surely she hadn't posed for Playboy or anything like that. You've really changed, Mac said. Who would have figured? Not her, that was for sure. Mac, she said, we used to have a health class together. Do you know what happened to the others? I spotted Barbara over there. What's she been doing? His answer surprised her, so she asked him about a few of the others. Mac pointed out Ira to her, and she giggled. Mac went on talking about his own life, and Joy listened without paying full attention. So, Joy, Mac purred, how long are you going to be in town? With a jolt, she realized that he was staring straight down into her cleavage. A jerk, that's what he was. Had been a jerk in school, was still a jerk, would be a jerk in 20 years. She could almost hear her mother's retort. Do you think a woman wears a dress like that so she'll be ignored? I expect it'll be fairly busy, she answered. That's right, you're making an appearance at the mall. He touched his necktie and looked away. Maybe you will have time for dinner with an old friend. She couldn't believe what he was asking, that he was asking her for a date. Mac, who considered himself a super stud back in their own time, Mac, who commented about her weight, was asking her out. I don't think that I have any old friends here, she replied with delicious grandeur. She started to move away. Pardon me now, mustn't keep the fans waiting. Snob. She didn't turn back. She spoke briefly to the others in her health class, except for one person she didn't see. Signed more autographed. It was kind of neat, also kind of not. Every time she moved, several fans gathered around her. They hung on her every word, laughed at everything she said, but they were all strangers to Joy, and she knew that she was really a stranger to them. Do you know where the phones are? She asked when there was a pause. I'd like to phone my mother. Your mother? The former school principal looked surprised. Isn't she on that island you bought near Australia? I'm sure that I heard something about you buying your mother an island so she wouldn't tempt you by cooking the old family specialties. Frankly, I think she sounds very sweet. Joy wanted to go back. She wanted to see her mother. She didn't know what she had to do to leave. I want to go home. The woman looked alarmed. You still have to make a speech. Everyone is expecting it. The room began to fade. Chow, Joy called to her. Time to wake up, Karen said. Open your eyes slowly. I won't turn the lights up immediately. The room was still dark, but not as dark as it had been. The chair was upright again. Do you know where you are? Night room. Tell me what year this is. Karen waited. You'll have to speak up a little. Joy told her the year. Karen removed the straps and helped her to sit up. Are you thirsty? Would you like something to drink? Yes, please. She looked down at a body with ordinary-sized breasts and extra weight because she was big-boned. I'll bring some water. Just sip it. Then you can go out and sit with your friends. It's not a good idea to drive away immediately. Like giving blood, you know. Joy looked around at the blackness surrounding her as the assistant went out into the hall. The lights had come up to almost ordinary level. A room, that's all it was, an ordinary room. Well, I'm gonna go right now. I'll either try to read you again another chapter tomorrow. If not, then later. If, I'm not so busy. Bye.